Well, here I am. I feel like I've been dropped out of the sky and delivered here somehow, miraculously. And I don't quite know how it happened. I've been on this odyssey for over 20 years, and it's led me right here, right now, to this space, to all of us together in this one period of time we'll never have again. This is really a once-in-a-lifetime experience, certainly for me, and I hope for you as well. First of all, thank you. Thank you to the Center for Action and Contemplation for inviting me, for inviting us. It's an overwhelmingly beautiful place. The work they're doing is breathtaking and needed, based in love. What more could we hope for than that? I want to thank my son, Simeon, who probably many of you have met, who is working like a dog at our table and who is traveling the path with me. Whoever would have thought that when you have a baby years later, it's that person you turn to for guidance, for expertise, the one you trust, the judgment. I am blessed beyond belief to have him as my son. And I'm thankful to Amy. I'm thankful to Amy, his partner, whom I consider my daughter, who, if you look out there in the gallery, you will see her face in many paintings. And you'll see Simeon too, because not only do they hit the road with me, they pose for me. And it's quite a miraculous experience. I want to thank Amy for being here and working so hard too. And one more family member, my beautiful cousin Patty, who came down from Santa Fe to be with us and who grew up in New York with me. To see her here, and we haven't seen one another for quite a few years, it's a great source of comfort and happiness. And thank you, Patty. And now I want to thank you, all of you. As I've been out at the table and I've looked at your cards hanging around your neck, I look at where you're from, and it takes my breath away to see how far you've come, how far you've traveled to be here in this environment of love. And I'm so impressed and grateful, and I want to talk to each one of you about where you're from, because I've been to many of your places where you live. And I want to thank you for your focus, your time, and wanting to be here with me. And I want to thank everybody who's webcasting. I have thought about you over the past couple of days and how you're out there. We can't see you, but I know I sure can feel you. And I know specifically there are people up in Duluth watching, excited, in a group, and another group in Burlington, Vermont. And I want to say, you're very much here and part of this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to just tell you that I'm not a speaker. if I hold on to this thing, you're going to see this thing shake. And I'm trying not to give it away too much. I've been worried about talking for months because I'm not a speaker. I'm a reclusive artist, and I'm happiest when I'm painting, standing next to my old gas stove, hoping the snow stops. And it's particularly difficult for me, in all honesty, because of the incredible speakers here. Reverend Jacqui, and Father Richard, and Dom. My goodness, how do they hold on to those complex subjects and express them and tie them to one another? I don't know. That's not me. And I am blown away by them. All I can offer you is me. And my voice, my real voice, is out in that gallery. Really, everything I have to say is on the wall. And that gallery space is for all of you. It's a space of reflection. It's a space of transition. It was built to provide some comfort for you. It's not easy to be around so many people in a relatively intense environment. So I hope that you'll enjoy it. Take the time you need. Feel calmness and breathe. What's going to happen here is I'll speak a little bit, and then I thought it might be nice to have a real brief, maybe 10-minute question and answer if anybody has anything they'd like to ask me. And I know sometimes people do, and there isn't a chance to ask. So, if you have anything you'd like to ask, maybe just think about it, and maybe we can do that in that span of time. And I'd like to end our time together with me here with a 3-minute video I'm going to play for you. Well, I brought it. They are kind enough to play it for you. And it's about a new use, a new kind of an incarnation for my work and how it's being carried in the world in support of women's rights, the immigrant community, the LGBT community, and in support of diversity. It wasn't my idea. Sorry. It wasn't my idea. What they are protest posters, vigil posters, and they're being carried now with my art out in the world. And this video was born organically, and it has not yet been released live. So everybody to this date who's seen it has just been invited to see it. And after our conference, and it's shown here, then it will go live. And it's called Hope. 20 years ago, I entered a competition, and I found out about this competition from a man here in Albuquerque, Dan Paulos, a wonderful paper artist. He sent me this letter, and he told me about this competition called Jesus 2000, sponsored by the National Catholic Reporter in Kansas City. They wanted to know if anybody was even thinking about Jesus as the millennium approached. They wondered. put the call out, attached a cash prize to it, $2,000, and they had 1,700 responses from 6 continents, 19 countries. People were thinking. And it was a competition not just for professional artists. Anybody around the world could send their interpretation. I have one work of art, although you could send 3. And most artists like to hedge their bets. I only had that one. I found out about it in late October. Painting was due mid-December. There wasn't much time at all. At the time, my nephew, Elliot McKenzie, was 15 years old, young man of color, and going through adolescent issues. And that was my initial motivation. Wow, what if I could do a painting he could see his own beautiful version of his face with dreadlocks? Yeah, that might just do a little bit of good. Okay, who will I use? Well, you know, I'm working with a young woman for several years at that point, woman of color. Thought, you know, she's perfect. She loves her children, she loves life. It was a no-brainer, really. But I decided, as all my thoughts were evolving regarding doing this will give me the opportunity to honor marginalized people always relegated to adjusting, to being left out. And it'll also give me a chance to include women in the physicality of Jesus. And that's something I've lived with. Where do I fit in? I've adjusted too. So I painted Jesus of the people. I painted it from memory because I didn't want to be influenced by Maria's beautiful young face. I wanted to bring the masculine and the feminine together as closely as possible to include once and for all an image of Jesus that reflected how we're all made. We're all masculine and feminine. Sister Wendy Beckett selected the painting first place winner. And as many of you may know, she passed away recently. And before I forget to mention this too, we became friends for 20 years. She sent me a Christmas card every year, and I couldn't read one of them. Her handwriting was illegible. But I sure appreciated the gesture. And the monastery where she lives sent me her order of service for her funeral recently. And it was a beautiful closure to a friendship. When the painting was revealed on the Today Show with then editor Michael Farrell, myself, and Matt Lauer, sometimes I hesitate to say his name now, the reaction was horrendous. People hated the painting, and they hated me. And the National Catholic Reporter kept the worst of it away from me, but a lot of it got through, to the point that my mail was separated for fear of a letter bomb. I was told if I painted Muhammad, which I didn't want to do, the same thing that happened to Salman Rushdie would happen to me. Fred Phelps and the Westboro Baptist Church wrote a letter to Senator Patrick Leahy, who, by the way, is a great believer in Jesus of the people. Bernie Sanders, then Governor Howard Dean, and me. It's so vile. I debated bringing it and reading parts of it, but it's so ugly. I just wouldn't bring that into this space. The hate was so intense. They threatened to come and picket in front of my studio. And my neighbor got wind of this, an older woman, and she was pretty excited. It was big news. And my neighbors in Vermont, they don't always agree with what you do, but they support you and your opinion, and they kind of let you know both. We don't necessarily agree with that image of Jesus, but we like you well enough. So, I've been asked over time, were you ever frightened in this journey? And I have to say that experience with Westboro Baptist Church did frighten me, not for my own sake, but because my neighbors were talking about lining up with guns in front of my studio. They were going to protect me, and felt like it was out of my hands. I mean, what happens if somebody gets hurt? And, how do I stop it? What can I do? And I worried a lot. Violence would happen way up there in the kingdom. But you know what? I do believe God has a sense of humor. The day they were going to come on their bus from Topeka, we had the worst blizzard you can imagine. My neighbor, of course, was disappointed, but and I wondered, I envisioned them packing their truck and say, we're hitting the road now, and then, no one really understands what it's like way up there on the moose roads. And when we left a week ago today, there was 5 feet of snow. So God provided, they didn't come. However, it didn't stop responses from coming. And at I received this letter addressed to the National Catholic Reporter on January 6th, 2000. But the really curious thing was that I also received this same letter, a copy of it, about a year ago. This person, whom I don't know, clearly wanted me to get the point. Yet, I don't know, there's something so sad about it. I don't know who it is. I assume it's a woman. The handwriting is pretty shaky. Some of it is typed. It's stained. But this is what she says. Mr. Farrell, in the 3 weeks since the article Rethinking Jesus by Associated Press writer David Crary appeared in the Times-Picayune, I have personally felt aghast at your willingness to promote debate via your ill-conceived contest. In my opinion, one need look no further for the Antichrist. Or another contest, as it will be sponsored by a misguided editor, another self-proclaimed agnostic, another story, an appalling nun. Who would promote, depict, and condone another update in what Catholics and Christians worldwide perceive to be our God Almighty, Savior, and Holy Spirit? Fact, underlined, should not be tampered with. History, underlined, cannot be changed. Jesus was born Jew, not African, nor Indian, and certainly not female, nor thick-lipped. He is all things to all people, but no one has a right to distort the facts about who and what he was. Shame on all of you who participated in this shocking new image of Christ. Well, I personally find it sad. So much time in figuring out what to say, so much effort in mailing it, and then mailing it again 20 years later. Why would you do that? It's a sad thing that that hate has remained in place. Nothing has changed for this person. Don't we evolve? Aren't our hearts open to loving others? How can it not be? On the other side of things, there were so many responses, so many emails, so much to handle, so much to learn. I did not know how to handle the media. And the media descended on me. The day the competition was announced on the Today Show, I got a call when I returned, before I left for New York to be on the Today Show. Yeah. I was standing out on my back porch. It was December. It was 6:30 in the morning. I was in my nightgown. It's snowing. This phone rings. Man says, lovely, gentle voice, "Congratulations. I read that your painting won the competition, and we wonder if you would be on the radio for a live interview." I had never, ever done anything like that. And I said, well, all right. I was a babe in the woods. So he said, all right, just hold on, and you'll hear a different sound, and then you'll know you're live. Well, what came on was a man screamed into the phone, and obviously on air live, and said, "So why'd you paint Jesus as Jimi Hendrix?" Loud though, and I'm the one allowed to yell at you. And it so took me back. It was like lightning went through. And again, I really felt the hand of God at work, because I'm not familiar with this. And my mother always used to say, you never answer a question with a question. But I said, is that what you see? And by the end of that conversation, he was talking as quietly as me, and we had this kind of whispering radio conversation, and it went really well. And then the emails, maybe this is from that time, maybe you want, I'll read you a little bit of one. As a Catholic, I want you to know that I am in no way offended by your painting. If anything, it restores my faith in people, being able to see Jesus in a different light. While I'm trying not to judge those who disparage your vision, I can only be saddened by their inability to open their minds to others. This one, I've carried this young woman in my heart for 20 years. And her name is Shana Thomas. She was 17 when she wrote it. That would make her 37 now. And she wrote, "Hello, I know you do not know me, so let me introduce myself. My name is Shana Thomas, and I'm 17 years old. I have recently seen your prized work of Jesus in Jet magazine, and I have to say, every time I look at it, I almost cry. It is so powerful the way he is standing there, the expression on his face, and all the symbols and representations you have in that one picture that represents all of us. I have to admit, I was surprised to see that you were white, but making my Jesus, our Jesus, of color even surprised me more. I hope that this picture will let everyone in this world know and finally realize that Jesus was not blonde-haired and blue eyes, but made in all of our images together. Thank you so much. God bless and good night. Yeah. The support I've received has really carried the journey with this painting, helped me carry the journey with this painting forward. I mean, I traveled across the country for 3 years, and I met with people who loved it and people who hated it. The National Catholic Reporter sponsored an exhibition that toured the country, and then I received invitations to exhibit Just Jesus of the People. And I met almost all of the requests. Started in New York, moved all around the country. For some reason I'm not sure of, the Midwest has embraced not only Jesus of the People, but my work in general. There's been a great hunger for inclusive work that celebrates all people. In the Midwest, to my surprise somewhat. On 9/11, I was in Santa Fe, and Jesus of the People was included in an exhibit at Good Hands Gallery. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that gallery, but it was the most fantastic, sacred gallery and the perfect fit for my work. And on 9/11, Ramon Lopez and his wife said, we're closing gallery for good right now. Going to end the exhibit because life as we know it will never be the same. Right? Then they called me back and said, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to keep the gallery open, and we're going to invite people to come and be with Jesus of the People if they want to. Beautiful pink adobe soft wall gallery, and there's Jesus of the People over the mantle. So they ran an ad in Pasatiempo, said, Jesus of the People is here. We're going to remain open in case anyone wants to come and be with the painting. And they came. And they stood before the painting and cried. We all cried. This commercial gallery, lovely but a business, evolved into a chapel. And there was Jesus of the People doing this strange thing that painting does in the world. It somehow moves on its own in different ways. It's beyond me. I'm only the technician. I believe that painting was meant to exist, to contribute to healing, hate, racial prejudice, everything the human race can't get past. It's an odyssey kind of to take this painting and hang it and then watch people respond to it. I mean, I've had these conspiratorial conversations with many people of color who say to me, thank you. And I had one woman at the National Black Catholic Congress with Simeon and I were there in 2002, and it was in reference to a few different things, but she said, I never forgot this. We die too. She was so upset and so angry, And where were images of her race? Where was she? Where were they in the story? And then there are other people who can't wait to talk to me. Most of the time, nobody ever thinks I'm the artist. I can stand there and listen to what everybody says. Because everyone's looking over my shoulder. They're looking for that African-American woman who must have painted that painting. But the really joyful thing, and something I had to get used to and kind of try to understand, and it happened, and it still happens. Someone will rush up to me, all eager in line, and they're like, and waiting, tell me something. And so they get there, and they say, Jesus of the people looks just like my sister. And I said, oh, that's great, that's wonderful. And she'll say, and she's here, and I'm going to introduce you. And I said, oh, great. So she goes and gets her, and I'm, waiting, and I'm thinking I'm going to see a clone. And this little tiny Asian girl showed up physically, not one iota, one tiny little bit of a physical resemblance at all. And then the sister says, look. I said, great. And then I'll be at another show. Somebody will say, you have to meet my uncle. It's like, great. Again, same thing, no resemblance whatsoever. Then I realized this is transcendence. This is somebody looking at Jesus of the people and seeing with their heart, not their eyes. They are feeling what the painting is saying. They get it. They're in communion with the painting and me. That painting came from my heart. Was born. I think I am just a technician. But they got it. They felt it. It was such a heart connection. Words fail. That's the journey of Jesus of the people. And if people bring hate and prejudice and indignant righteousness, self-righteousness, the painting makes them feel worse. Sometimes I think it's got a little Mona Lisa quality to it. You know how her face kind of just twists in the corner a little bit sometimes? Jesus people does that too. And I'm as mesmerized by that as anybody. So, over the course of these 20 years, I thought, well, interest will die back. Never has. But you know why? And it's a sad thing. That painting, that inclusive interpretation of Jesus, was meant to exist. It was meant to exist right now, and the effect it had was because of timing. Everything has its time. Reverend Jacqui was talking about that this morning, and that's true. At one point, I was very frustrated. I turned to my friend Roz, who's Jewish, and I said, oh, Roz, why is it like this? And Roz was real short and, tempered. And she said, oh, for heaven's sakes, Janet. She said, don't you realize 30 years ago, it would have just been thrown under the rug, nothing would have happened at all. This is its time. So, I think so. So over all these years, it's hard to believe it's been 20 years, and that we still need that image to be reminded we're all the same. We're all created equally. We all have a right to find ourselves honored, celebrated in sacred art, and we're all created in God's likeness. Nothing complicated about that, not to me. So the path, just to show you how the response to the painting never stops. This was sent to me in 2016 from a priest, and it reads, "Years ago, a woman dealing with the aftermath of sexual and religious violence voiced an awareness of a loving presence in her life that countered all of the patriarchal violence she experienced in church and culture. When I asked if she had a sense of what this presence looked like, she immediately pointed to the painting and said, 'Like her.' Yesterday, a man leaving my office pointed to it and said, 'Who is that saintly figure? I just want to look into those eyes for a minute.'" So, it continues. And the last quote on Jesus of the People, and this came in February 2019, and it was written by Father John Christman for Black Jesus Matters, the U.S. Catholic magazine, and he wrote, "Jesus, however, is not defined by suffering, nor is he defined by salvation. In fact, Jesus is always bigger than any label or definition we might put on him. This is part of the great intrigue and allure of Janet McKenzie's painting, Jesus of the People. McKenzie brings us back to the essential reality of the incarnation and realization that Christian art is bereft without the full expression of humanity. As St. Paul reminds us, if one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. All sufferings and joys are embedded in Jesus of the People. The crown of thorns acknowledges a history of suffering and marginalization, while the depiction of Jesus witnesses to a deep solidarity with all people. McKenzie's painting works to bring healing to the pain caused by oppressive images of Jesus. May it continue to inspire Christians to see Jesus as they ponder their own humanity and the humanity of others." Every painting in that exhibit has a story, a backstory, a complicated journey into birth. Much of it celebrates mothers and women and the feminine spirit, and how women are still fighting for equality, and how Mary serves as an ultimate iconic source of strength and determination. For a long time, I did not paint men. I just focused on women. But when I received a commission to paint the Holy Family and needed to paint Joseph, I was struck that there are very few paintings of Joseph where he is really with Mary and the child Jesus, close. He's always set apart. He's always depicted as like a little bit homely. And I thought, this man was there for that baby, was there for that boy, and he was a masculine presence in that boy's life. And so I have painted now several paintings of Joseph that celebrate him with Mary and Jesus as a figure of love, of a male figure that reflects the nurturing side of men. And I know that side because my father was that. He went to work at 6:30 in the morning, came home at 6:30 for dinner, and went back out again to work at night. And he loved me. My son is like that. Graceful, beautiful, nurturing men. And those men, like you, they often get no recognition. So I've decided to paint Joseph with a little more respect. So, time's moving on. If you have a question, maybe we'll do that for 10 minutes. Then we'll stop that. We will play the video, hope. I will come briefly and say goodbye. And then we have a break after that. So, anybody has a question? I think we could maybe.
I just want to thank you for your humility and saying that God is obviously working through your hands.
Thank you.
I have a 19-year-old daughter who is a beautiful artist, and I just ask you to think and imagine some way that you could mentor young artists, because we need you.
I did not hear did you catch the?
I have a young daughter who is 19, and she's a beautiful artist. And I'm so inspired to tell her, Marie, use your art to bring heaven to earth. And I just ask you to consider some way that you could write a book or mentor young women artists. We need you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll try.
My question is a personal one for you. You can answer it or not. How did you find the inner strength to be you when you were receiving so much negativity? How did you go on and keep painting and give us all these?
Well, as an artist, I painted, I've been an artist my whole life. I've lived below the poverty line most of my life. It does toughen you up. And you do recognize when something important has happened. And it's important to stand behind what you create, because artists are not asked to speak or defend their work verbally very much. My inner strength came from the strength of my mother, who had quite a backbone, and my own long history of, in many senses, defending my work in general as an artist and my right to create, as a woman in particular. So it's gonna keep going.
Janet, thank you very much for your contribution. And as I listened to your story, it evoked in me an awareness. Awareness was the opposite of love is not hate, but it's apathy, indifference. And it seems to me that your work evoked deep emotional responses, even from those who were not capable of love. And is it possible that the radiance of your love and your appreciation for those that always have to adjust comes through the art in other than just what one person sees? And is it possible that this deep awareness of your soul in love actually reached everyone?
Oh, I hope so. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you.
For inspiration, do you find that things, I'm on your left. Do you find the inspiration comes from readings? Does it come from dreams? Where do you get your vision of what you then display on canvas?
Well, I get my inspiration by looking at Amy Robinson's beautiful face. I get my inspiration from looking at a little African-American child, looking at my painting and looking up. And I get my inspiration in the abstractness of my own life. And sometimes people ask me to paint certain figures. That's how St. Josephine Bakhita was brought to me. I feel that there's no mistake in those things. I trust the journey. And I trust that what's brought to me is at least worth considering. I don't read about too many things, although some poetry does strike me. And I don't look at other artists' work very much. I don't want their images in my head. I try to keep my mind and my heart open and pure so that it can all come through. That's it.
Janet, I love the letter that you shared from that 17-year-old, and I just wondered if you were ever able to meet her in these 20 years.
No, that's the strange thing, you know. I have a very busy, active life with people I never meet.
Well, one day you might, huh?
I'm sorry?
I said one day you might meet her.
I might,
Yeah.
when it's right and meant to be.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the last one.
I just want to say thank you, Janet, for not only raising up Joseph, but raising up men. You know, we get a bad rap these days. It seems like we're the evil people, and somebody like you is at least raising up our feminine and our good side and our nurturing masculine side. And I am so grateful for that kind of an attitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think right now it's time to play hope. And from my heart to yours.
You are held by holy angels, holy angels, all around you. Hush now, sleep, child, sing the holy angels. We are
And so I'm going to always remember this experience, watching all of you, watching that. Thank you so much.